The band has been together 16 years. We gave our final concert, the band's final concert. We called it The Last Waltz.
Well, when the Last Waltz idea came up, we were just talking about the concert. As we got started with this thing, something was happening. You could feel something going on. And then the idea came up of, well, if we're going to do this thing, we should document this in some kind of way. I talked with Martin Scorsese about helping us.
I didn't know him at all. I just knew his music. I admired them from afar, there's no doubt, and the music meant a great deal to me. So
I could see that he was really hooked by the idea.
it's more of a compulsion and obsession with the music. What I realized was that this is signaling the end of an era.
He was right in the middle of shooting a movie as well. It couldn't have probably been a worse time.
I couldn't let the opportunity pass. It was this kind of crazy desire to get it on film, to be a part of it.
We didn't have very much time to put it together. It was literally a few weeks before this was all going to happen.
The least we could do is just to record it on film. That's the first thought we had. 16 millimeter, recorded on film. And that's how we proceeded, really.
We were doing this by the seat of our pants. We didn't have any budget. We hadn't made a deal for a film.
There was no contract. I never got paid or anything. It just did, for me, the joy was in making the movie.
And it was just rumbling and getting bigger and bigger and bigger day by day.
And then I thought, it might be really interesting to get a little extra money. And for the first time, if you set the cameras in certain positions and they're locked in, we could also create the lighting and which gels would be used, the colors that would be used, and where the light would change on which line of which lyric of the song. This is something ultimately which I designed completely on paper. I said, if we have that much control, why don't we try something that was never done before? And they said, that is to actually shoot this documentary in 35 millimeter.
And it just snowballed. And Bill Graham and his people, they did a pretty wonderful job. They spiffed up Winterland a little bit and tried to make it look nicer.
The issue of Winterland, how can we transform it for the event itself?
We've got no money to, do elaborate things.
Forget budget, forget production possibilities. Let's go for the ideal. Write the ideal down. Let's think of the ideal. Boris Levin is one of the great Hollywood production designers, but I had known Boris's work through earlier films, particularly West Side Story, Sound of Music, and that's interesting. He did Sound of Music and The Last Waltz. I had met Boris through Irwin Winkler from New York, and while he was hanging around, I said, Boris, come with us. We're going to do this rock picture, and if it's going to be more than just archival, it might be nice to have a real set designed in a way, transform Winterland. And when Boris walked into Winterland, he said, I see it. He said, the entire ceiling covered with chandeliers. I said, brilliant. And he made some wonderful paintings, about 5 or 6 of them, just to give an idea of what it could be like. So it was Boris's eye. It was his eye and his thought that we wanted to use to inspire us.
So Boris, with his kind of imagination, and he was thinking, what can we do to make it look unique? Like we haven't seen this before, and something special. And so he thought, San Francisco, what have we got? And he said, the opera.
And so we acquired the set of La Traviata from the San Francisco Opera and added footlights, too, which gave another kind of effect, a low-angle lighting, which was very theatrical, and 3 chandeliers on stage. That's what we came to, because we just couldn't afford the whole place being filled with chandeliers. It was a great idea.
Marty talked to Michael Chapman, who had been his DP on Taxi Driver and Raging Bull.
He was the main director of photography of the whole thing because he had to supervise the lighting for all of it.
And we went from the most minimal idea to obviously where it went.
And so it was a whole different approach. I was really interested in the music, how the music is performed. That is, the relationship of the performers on the stage. The idea was to keep the cameras on the stage, on the performers.
We don't want to resort to cutaways of people in the audience going crazy or chewing gum or stoned out of their mind. That's not what this is about.
If anything, the reverse shots would reveal the audience. I love those reverse shots in any film I ever see them. And when you have a reverse on the stage, behind the performer, and you see the audience out there, it's quite something. You see the connection between the performer and the audience very clearly, and that's kind of nice. You feel the electricity.
Everybody wanted to do this with respect for the event.
He also didn't want us to interfere too much with the actual performance. And that was important, too. You couldn't have cameramen all over the place with cranes coming down, that sort of thing.
You had to have respect for the audience, for the people that were there.
He's right, because, otherwise the cameras would be all over the place, and the people who'd come to see the concert, there wouldn't be that communication between the audience and the performers. It'd be something done for some movie.
I went through all of the songs, all of the things with him, and telling him, like, some of the events that happen. Okay, right here, this guy does that, and then over here, the horn section comes in, and here's where this vocalist comes in with that vocalist, and then the instrumental happens there, and just giving him some of the things that he wanted to get. He's taken all the lyrics to every song that we're going to do that night and written beside the lyrics in the margin, drawn little pictures of where the camera should go and what the mood should be and what the lighting and what kind of shots and what kind of angles. This elaborate script that he wrote, a musical script.
And setting up the storyboards had to do with reading the lyrics, seeing which instrument came in, played by whom, knowing the song, and just getting images in my head from the song itself, or reading the lyrics and getting images from the lyrics. And we had columns. Main column on the left has the lyrics and the chorus and that sort of thing. And then literally who's doing what, where, and when in the song.
So I thought, wow, this guy's serious. He's going in here like Alfred Hitchcock, he's prepared. I was very nervous about this. We're back there thinking, we have to play with all these different artists, and we have to remember all these songs. You wanted to take care of them. You wanted to do a really good job for them. So we went into the concert thing like, that's all we're thinking about.
Good evening.
Hope it works out, but we've got to deal with this right now.
When that music started on Cripple Creek, I had butterflies in my stomach, but we were there. We were ready.
Straight down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico.
When I first heard the downbeat, I hadn't realized the level of sound. There was a moment there I realized, how am I going to communicate? And so I was basically on the stage right, I believe, dressed in black to fade away in the background there, literally talking to each or yelling to each cameraman because the sound was so strong.
Up on Cripple Creek, she sent me if I sprang a leak, she bends me.
The music made me feel like a participant, but I knew damn well I was an observer. So I had to be very careful because I had to remain cool-headed as much as possible to get a sense of where we were, what was happening, what we were picking up and what we weren't. And certain songs had to be just right. I mean, Cripple Creek had to be just right. I knew that I had this plan to fall back on. It was extremely difficult because it was such a big wad of paper. So I had to break it in about 5 songs each or so, and I kept turning over. There was no light backstage either. It was like a little flashlight that we had to use just in case to remember if a camera went out, if so-and-so was getting a close-up of him or her or whatever. And therefore, I knew that camera 2 for, let's say, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down had to have a medium shot at least for the beginning to cover Robbie and Rick. But if it started with the guitar riff, I worked it out on paper to be tighter on that, and then leave it up to them, move in and out. If we lost half a song, I knew in the next song, if all the cameras were down, as soon as you load up, camera number 4, you're on Levon. Camera number 5, you are on Neil Young. When he comes out, you hold him and Robbie and Rick. Camera 3, you're on a close-up of Neil. Just pan with him, whatever he does. If 2 or 3 of the cameras ran out of film, that song would have to be Casualty.
I'm going up on Cripple Creek, she sent me.
And I think it was well done, the first number. The cameramen were just great on that first number, Cripple Creek. It was a beauty. And the energy of the Cripple Creek, the energy of the song, the energy. They hit it. The yodeling, I think, in that number. That's where it hit it, and the whole audience was caught.
I sure wish I could yodel like them.
The authority of the performance was such that after that was over, we could do anything, we thought. Let's just keep going. We got crazy. We just loved it.
And it was off to quite a lovely start.
We'd like to start with him, the Hawk, Ronnie Hawkins.
When one artist would come out to another one, it was almost like going through shock treatment, It was so jolting.
Big time, Bill! Big time, big time!
After 2 or 3, you found yourself getting a little bit more comfortable in these trenches, and we hit some kind of a groove, and it went into one of those places of magic where it was beyond trying to remember. You just did.
To the one more time.
I can't even describe in words. It just took you to the zone, and you just rode it out through the whole thing.
For me, I think what I felt on the stage was as if each song was a round. I've always said this was a round in a prize fight. And you'd see the fighters then go to their corners, heavy breathing, throw some water in their faces, cover up the wounds and the cuts, and get them out there. You're doing fine. Let's go into the next one. Bang. And then they're all looking at each other. Okay, we're going to end somehow. And, you know, and who's coming out? Where's he going to stand or where she's going to stand?
Joni Mitchell.
What you have to understand is that no matter how prepared you are, this is a live concert. I mean, in any live event, you're going to be subject to something happening on stage that you don't expect. You're going to be subject to chance, to luck, to fate. I mean, there's bound to be moments that you're not going to be able to control. I did all I could to prepare so that if a problem came up, I could get back in sync. I could fall right back on the preparation I'd done on paper. And this was the case in a couple of the numbers with the band that we ran down our cameras. A lot of our cameras went down. And then, of course, they would run out of film. Or the sync 35 millimeter motors of the cameras would burn out. And constantly seeing sync motors being carried away like bodies. There were certain songs we really wanted to get, and we tried our best. A couple of songs we didn't get. We just had to stop at times. People had to take a break. Manish Boy.
That means Manish Boy.
In this instance, there was a miscommunication that went through the whole crew to take a much-needed break. Because when I heard it, the refrain, I'm a man.
But now I'm a man.
I said, wait a minute. We've got to get this. Get the message out to every one of the cameramen. Get rolling. Get started. We're screaming into the thing. And it was like my heart dropped. I said, it's insane. How could we have made this error?
That means Manish Boy.
And then somebody ran back. I said, wasn't anybody running? I said, Laszlo was. Thank God. I said, and that was it.
Man child.
When we finally got the people out to the other cameramen, they started shooting. It was the very tail end of it. On the beat, everybody pounded their feet into the floor, and the whole place shook to Manish Boy. It was amazing. It was like being in some sort of religious ceremony in some wild cathedral. And it was a constant, hard-working situation for 7 hours straight. And it's just luck that that performance was finally captured on film.
The evening had been going on for a long time, having gone through the dinner and the Waltz orchestra, and then the concert, and then the Poets of San Francisco, and then the finale. And it was one of those things that you felt like, if I can just get through this alive, this is going to be a great moment. You were really looking at the finish line on this.
Thank you very much.
It was like, everybody must be exhausted. Everybody must have had their fill and more by now, and everybody left the stage. So I went backstage, changed clothes, was relaxing, it's over, and Bill Graham comes back and says, not one person has left out there. You have to go out there and play some more. I don't know if we know any more songs,
You're still there, huh?
I couldn't believe it when I walked out there and saw all these people still there, and he was right.
We're gonna do one more song, and that's it.
And you could feel something in that last song of the last waltz, knowing this is the last song.
I don't know, I just felt a great deal of satisfaction.
So after the concert, Marty was, he was exhausted, but he was also incredibly exhilarated.
Good night.
It was one of the best times I had in my life, I remember. We just hoped that we caught as many of the songs as we thought we had gotten. We just hoped that we'd gotten all the best of the best.
He said, I don't want to, jinx anything, but I got a feeling maybe we got something here.
We still didn't know what it was going to look like on film, though. By just the next day or 2 days later or whatever it was, they put 3 rolls of film up, 3 of the cameras, and when they pressed start, the clarity, the beauty of it was kind of shocking to me. I said, it's a movie. This is something very special. It wasn't flash, it wasn't phony theatrics, it was people expressing themselves with music. What we caught on film, I do think we caught pretty much what I felt on the stage. The cameramen were able to get the electricity, presence, the excitement, and the extraordinary physical achievement of creating the music on the stage.
Then Marty said, this is all glorious and great and beautiful and all that, but we have to make this a movie. This can't just be cameras in front of music. We have to figure this out.
Now, naturally, in the beginning, to lay out the scene, to show some of San Francisco, to show some of the people lining up, to show the waltz itself, that sort of business, that was just the beginning to set the context and the exposition as to where we were and why. We started to talk about a structure, 2 things that occurred. One was that certain numbers, the Wait particularly, Evangeline, and of course the Last Waltz theme, that those should be done separately, like in a studio.
I didn't have the opportunity to get this prepared for the concert, but I had written this Last Waltz suite. And the Staple Singers had been a great influence of ours, the gospel music influence.
In the case of The Wait being such an important song in their body of work, that we wanted to give it a better presentation. But the philosophy, the religious sentiment of it, that represents who they are, I think. The lyrics of The Wait always moved me. Also, I never heard a sound like that before.
And also, at the concert, we didn't represent any of the country influence. Besides wanting to round out the music, one of Marty's great talents is the way he moves the camera. He had the opportunity with 3 songs to do what he does.
We did it for 5 nights. Again, that was somewhat designed by Boris Levin to a certain extent. There were no multiple cameras. There was 1 camera on a crane. If the shot was to go for the first 4 lyrics, that was it. First 4 bars of music, that was it. There was no other shot covering it. I drew little storyboards myself. That was designed by, again, through the lyrics and through the piece of music itself. That has to do with movement, color, sensation, texture, movement. If the music communicates to you, you invariably are going to make the right moves with the camera, I think. No one really even knows what the right choice is at this point in that kind of thing. But you're going to make a good choice. You're going to make the best choice you can if the music is communicating to you and you're feeling really good about that. Once we understood that The Wait and Evangeline and the Last Waltz theme should be photographed in a special way, like an old MGM musical, so to speak, the film was taking on another tone. This also then goes to the next step, that was the evolution of the structure, which Robbie suggested, which was interviews.
I told him a lot of stories and things about over the years being on the road, and he said, you know, when you're telling me these things, that's the kind of way to do it, so it just isn't information.
They had a purpose. They had a purpose for, again, the link of the history of the music. Therefore, the interviews helped us with that.
The Midnight Ramble. And the songs would get a little bit juicier, and the jokes would get a little funnier.
So have the women. You know, and it's amazing.
There is a view that jazz is evil. He kept spitting in this can and playing, and we kept getting drunker. And finally, I looked over in the can, and I realized it was blood.
Because also it was like, in a sense, educating the audience, letting them know that this, those who don't know, there are many people who do know. In fact, in the film, I'm discovering as I go along.
Right, and what's it called then? rock and roll.
And it became a whole process for me of discovery. And so you see this in Last Waltz as part of, that's what those interviews were about ultimately. But there was the dark element.
The numbers start to scare you. I mean, I couldn't live with 20 years on the road. I don't think I could even discuss it.
That certainly gave me a grounding in truth, really, in that world.
I just want to break even.
And so I was able to feel that it wasn't simply just people playing instruments nicely on a stage and saying some pretty words. No, the words had meaning for me. And I'm not talking about nostalgia or anything. It's the poetry of it, I think.
'Cause like the gambler says, read 'em and weep.
I was in the process of absorbing it. And I did know. I did understand what they were talking about by the end of the picture. And that's one of the reasons why it's that way. It's part of the life that at the end, they say, could do you in very young.
It's a goddamn impossible way of life.
A lot of the people in the film are, very, very young when this was done, and to say this is the last waltz, and it was talked about as the end of an era, and all of these kind of things at the time. I feel, looking back at it, like, well, this wasn't early to be doing anything like this. It was what it was, and it was, that time period. And I feel good about, wrapping up something so you can unwrap something else.
And 25 years later, I was very surprised. Robbie called me Thanksgiving and said, "Monty, it's been 25 years of the actual concert." I said, "Can't be. Sometimes I don't want to look at the film because it's just too moving for me, the whole picture. The music is. The music is."